Another Ethan Nwaneri starts, another Ethan Nwaneri man of the match performance. Arsenal go to Preston, get a good 3-0 win, all well and good. Of course, Havertz gets a goal, Jesus gets his first goal of the season, a much needed goal. But of course, this video has to be spoken about the man of the match, the youngest player on the pitch, the player who was so class in everything he did throughout the game, in Ethan Nwaneri. The 17-year-old not only put in a man of the match performance, but he scored an absolute worldie and almost followed that up with another one later on in the second half when he clipped the top of the crossbar. There's no secret about how talented Ethan Nwaneri is. 17 years old, he's so good technically off the ball. He looks really good, very good shots on him, very good passing. He seems very mature in what he does. At 17 years old, he's well above the level of Preston, which shows that he is getting closer to becoming a level for a starting Premier League team. And if you had just watched even the highlights from that game, you could just see just how slick he is on the ball. Again, a lot like Martin Odegaard. Now, I do think they are a little bit different still, but there is a very similar profile between him and Martin Odegaard. And with a performance like this from Ethan, you got to start asking yourself, when is Nwaneri going to actually start starting in Premier League games for Arsenal and Arteta? I mean, his performance right now against Preston has made me convinced that he is the new star boy. Bukayo Saka is our captain, our star man, fine. But Ethan Nwaneri is the new star boy from the academy. Just looking at Ethan Nwaneri's game statistically against Preston, it's disgustingly good. 5 tail shots, 1 goal. His accurate passes were 55 out of 56, 98% accurate passes as a 17-year-old played 18 minutes for Arsenal. 2 out of 5 shots accuracy, 73 touches, 5 touches in the opposition box, 2 out of 3 successful dribbles, 1 accurate long ball, only dispossessed once throughout the whole game. And then defensively, he also did his job. 2 out of 2 tackles won, 2 defensive actions, 4 recoveries won, 4 out of 6 ground duels won. Like Ethan Nwaneri, if you didn't even watch the game and just looked at him statistically, you would see that he was by far man match. And then you watch the game and you just see how class he is technically. I don't think there's many players at 17 years old in world football that are quite as good as him technically, outside of maybe Lamine Yamal. But even I think if Ethan Nwaneri was playing for Barcelona right now, he would probably be a consistent starter. So that begs the question, why is he not already a consistent starter? We saw him against Bolton be the man of the match and perform so well, even scoring a brace. And we've seen him now perform against Preston, again being man of the match and even scoring a goal. So you got to start asking yourself, well, why isn't he at least in contention to be a starter in the Premier League? Well, there's a couple of things I think we do have to analyze. Both of the games where he started against Preston and Bolton, there are lesser opposition. I know you can only beat what's in front of you, and he's looked really good against lesser opposition, but there are lesser opposition nonetheless. Now, he has had some good cameos against Leicester, against Spurs, but when he starts games and he performs the way he did, it's usually against lesser opposition. Now, that's not discrediting anything Nwaneri has done in the Carabao Cup, because I think he's been superb, especially for a 17-year-old. But you guys also must remember, Arsenal and Arteta need to manage minutes of these young players. We've seen countless amount of times players from Arsenal, players from other clubs get overplayed. I mean, look at a guy like Ansu Fati, look at a guy like Jack Wilshere. They get overplayed at a young age, and it stunts their growth, as well as adding on tons of injuries and making them an injury-prone player. We have to be very careful in how we manage the minutes of guys like Mauro Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri. Now, I do think tactically right now, Trossard is preferred in the 10 over Ethan Nwaneri, and I think we can all understand why. Trossard is a better player objectively, and he has more leadership, more experience, so he can help us in bigger, harder Premier League games. That's not discrediting anything Nwaneri brings to the table, but it is something you have to consider. That listen, we are at a point where we have to start winning trophies, we have to start winning Premier Leagues, and yes, Ethan Nwaneri is so good. If we were only a top 4 team, I would say Ethan Nwaneri should start basically every Premier League game. But as well as him being 17 years old, having to manage his minutes, and still having a really jam-packed, high world-class squad, you kind of have to be very careful with these minutes that you give into the likes of Lewis Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri. Now, the first positive sign is that Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly, they're getting game time. Of course, Lewis Skelly didn't start against Preston, but that's because he played so many minutes against Liverpool and he still came off the bench for Zinchenko. But I don't think the reason Nwaneri is not starting more consistently, I don't think it really has anything to do with his technical ability. Maybe a little bit off the ball, like he does like to get dragged into higher spaces sometimes and all that good stuff, but he is 17 years old and sometimes he can be a little bit loose with the ball, but again, he is 17 years old. But technically, I don't think it's an issue. Off the ball, I really don't think that's an issue either. I do think the biggest issue and the biggest reason why Nwaneri isn't starting basically every game, well, it's because you have a guy like Trossard ahead of him. Odegaard comes back, you will have a guy like Odegaard ahead of him, and also Nwaneri is still 17. He has tons of time to play. Bukayo Saka only truly broke through at Arsenal when he was about 18 or 19. Ethan Nwaneri still has about a year or two until he gets to that stage. If it's 2 years down the line and Nwaneri is still only playing cup games, never really starting in the league, yes, then we can start worrying. Then we can start getting on Arteta's back saying start Ethan Nwaneri. But the fact of the matter is that Ethan Nwaneri, this is his first season with the professional team, at least full. And as much as I would love him to start and just start scoring bangers in the Premier League, I just don't think that's the best long-term solution. And with our squad, like I said, being so stacked, especially even with injuries, we still have a really stacked squad. I don't think there's necessarily a need to start Ethan Nwaneri every game. Regardless, I thought Ethan Nwaneri was so class against Preston, and this was yet another performance showing us why Ethan Nwaneri is our next star boy. Bukayo Saka, like I said, is the star man, but Ethan Nwaneri is Arsenal's next star boy.